Hey guys, HackerSploit here, back again with another video. And in this video, we're going to be looking at modules in Metasploit. So this is part 2 of the Metasploit series or the Metasploit course. And in this video, we're going to be looking at modules. So as we touched upon in the previous video, we looked at what modules are very basically. And the purpose of that video was to take you through the interface and get you comfortable with using Metasploit. Right, but now it's time to understand what each of the components are. Again, that'll give you a better understanding of how they all work. And as we already know, if you understand something, you can get to use it much better than if you just, zoomed over some of the concepts and some of the real core functionality of Metasploit. Right. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to start up. I'm back on Kali, by the way. So some of you guys thought that I was actually sticking with Parrot. I like to keep things a little bit different here and there. So MSF console. Oops. I'm going to just start off with that and let the framework load. Again, I'm running this on a virtual machine, so resources are not going to be the best right now. But while that's starting up, I want to explain a few things. Now, as I mentioned, all right. When the Metasploit console opens, it gives you some options, right? And it'll show you the types of modules. Now, the types of modules are like the auxiliary, the payloads, the exploits, the encoders, the NOPs, all right? So there are 6 of them, and one of them is the post, all right? So in total, you have your exploits, your payloads, your auxiliary, your encoders, and your post and your NOPs, all right? Now, looking at the architecture, Metasploit, again, it's very important that you understand this. Looking at the architecture, the basic structure is that modules are categorized into 6, which you've already mentioned: the exploits, payloads, auxiliary, encoders, post, and NOPs. And then that is then superseded by the MSF console or the Metasploit console or framework. And then it is superseded then by the core, and then finally by the Rex in terms of the libraries. So to put this into the interface, to put it into sense when it comes down to interfaces, you have your GUI and Armitage, you then have your command line interface, and then finally your console. So I hope you get that in terms of the architecture. All right. Now, something very important to understand is to understand where the modules are stored. All right, so we can just go, open a new terminal here. Hopefully that lets me open it up right now. All right, so new window. Again, bear with me. The speed could be a bit of an issue, but don't worry about it. I'll sort that out in probably the next videos. It won't be this slow. For some reason, it's really lagging out right now. All right, so what I'm going to do now is let me just zoom in so we can have a better picture of what's going on here. All right, so now, most of the time, or all of the time, should I say, the Metasploit modules are stored in the user and the share folder, right, or the shared folder, share, and again, Metasploit framework. Whoops, now let me just complete that. Metasploit framework. All right, now, again, that's a directory. Now, you might be wondering what lies in here. Well, the modules lie in here. All right, so if I list all the files in here, as you can see, we have an interesting bunch of files. The one we're targeting is going to be the modules folder right here, right? Because that's another way of accessing the currently installed modules or the used modules, right? So let's go into that folder. If we list the files in here, as you can see, it's further divided into the 6 categories that I mentioned earlier. We have our auxiliary, encoders, exploits, NOPs, payloads, and post, right? Very interesting. You might be asking, what do we do now? Now, the point here is I was trying to explain the directory, the file directory structure, and how it's really sorted out. Okay, now the modules, the directory contains the 6 subdirectories, all right, which then contain different type of module sorted into what you see. All right, now let's start off with the exploits, right? The exploits usually are used for exploitation, that's very easy to understand. These are modules that were created for you to take advantage of an exploit or a vulnerability in a system. Okay, so let's see what we have in exploits. So I'm just going to go into exploits right now. CD exploits. If I list that, as you can see, these are the current exploits that you have sorted out in terms of the operating system or the target operating system in which there is a vulnerability. So, you know, for example, you have Apple iOS, Android, Firefox, FreeBSD, Linux, you have your Solaris, Unix, Windows, and obviously Mac OS X. All right. So as you can see, this lists everything really, really well. Let me just list that correctly. I wanted to list everything. There we are. All right. So as you can see, they're listed into further subdirectories, which are sorted in terms of their operating systems. Now we'll be looking again, these are just meant you know, specific to the operating system you're trying to target. So if I was to try to target Windows, and I list what's in here, as you can see, you're going to have a lot of other files, and the again further subdirected into their different forms of vulnerabilities. Like you could exploit the Oracle, PostgreSQL proxies, the firewall, etc., etc. You get the idea. So exploits are used to take advantage or to exploit a vulnerability in a system, right? That's one type of a module. Now I'm going to back out, and I'm just going to clear that, and let's look at what other modules that we have. The other modules that we have are the payloads. All right, or you can go into the encoders, but let's look at payloads first. All right, so payloads, these are files that are left on the exploited system. All right, and basically speaking, what they allow you to do is they give the attacker access or control over the system. Right now, these are usually called rootkits, well, most of the time they're really separated from each other. So basically not all payloads are rootkits, and simply put, payloads allow the attacker to own the system, all right, in which they are left in. So let's see what we have in the payloads folder, right? CD payloads, and if I list all the files there, as you can see, you have your single stages and the stages. So let's see what we have inside each of these directory. Now, as I've said, they've been divided further into 3 directories. Singles are these are small, well, I don't know how to explain it to you. These are like these small, these are small pieces of code, or I don't want to say exploits. They're usually designed, they're designed to take like one single action. All right. Now stages are used for performing or you're creating a communication between the attacker and the target, and this can be then further used to deliver another payload. All right, and stages are very, very large payloads that can give the attacker like a very, very, very good control over the target. So for example, this can allow you to have Metasploit instances. You can have VNC and stuff like that, right? And that's what payloads offer in terms of singles, stages, and stages. So singles are very, very small. They're used for performing one specific attack, like, you know, key logging, for example. That's a very, very vague example. Stages allow you to perform or to create a communication, an instance of a communication between the attacker and the target that can then be used to send another payload to the system, the target system, right? Stages are very large payloads that allow you to perform large or, you know, potentially more dangerous types of attacks, the likes of, you know, VNC connections or Metasploit shells, or even reverse shells, to be very, very basic, right? Now let's go back here. Okay. And I'm just going to go back. And again, we're looking at the other types of modules here. The next one that we're going to look at is the auxiliary. And the auxiliary, oops, let me just go back into modules. I seem to have gone further out. All right, so looking at we have looked at the exploits and the payloads. Now let's look at the auxiliary. All right, the auxiliary is something very, very interesting. All right, the auxiliary will give you a very, very, very unique types of attacks. In the sense, they give you things like DOS, they give you DOS functionality, they give you fuzzer functionality, they give you scanners. And again, this is becoming really, really popular because, again, they're giving you things that that you cannot find in any of the other categories, whether it be payloads and exploits. All right, so the auxiliary is giving you very, very robust tools, things like, DOS functionality, as I've said, scanners, so, vulnerability scanners and stuff like that. So things that can really, really come in handy. So let's explore this further, right? So cd change directory into our auxiliary. All right. And we'll list that in there. And as you can see, it's sorted into something very, very interesting. So you have your crawlers, you have your sniffers, parsers, your scanners, your spoofers, and you can check them out. They're they're divided further into these awesome directories, right? Now, again, they're going to be categorized into, directories that you will find familiar if you've been hacking for a while, things like sniffers, fuzzers, etc., etc. And the primary use of the auxiliary is to scan the target system. All right. So they allow you to scan for vulnerabilities and to perform probably most likely denial of service attacks. Okay. So that's basically what the auxiliary is, simply put. All right. Now let's look at the other modules, right? All right. So I'm just going to go back and we're going to list everything again. And now we have the encoders. All right. The encoders are very, very interesting. All right. These simply do what they sound or what they say. The encoders are used to re-encode payloads and exploits. All right. So they're used to, and a lot of people have been asking me this. Well, they're used to get past security systems such as antiviruses. All right. So this is where you really want to be looking if you're looking for encoders or if you're looking for evasion techniques, right? So let's look at what we can find inside, right? So cd encoders, right? And let's list what we have inside. So as you can see, we have different types here, and this may be confusing. Let's browse further into the subcategories, which one of them being the PHP. Let's list. And in here, you might not understand what's going on, and trust me, we'll be looking at all of this because it's very, very vital to understand this. Now, listing all the subdirectories, you can see that they're divided into somewhat understandable categories, right? So they're divided into, for example, CPU architectures like 64-bit, 32-bit, you have your command prompts, you have your PHP, all right? So these they're used or give you the option to create an encoder or to use a specific encoder based upon the target system. So if your system is 64-bit, 32-bit, you want to go through PHP, you want to use the command prompt. So again, I hope you guys are getting the idea. But it's very, very important to understand how these are divided, because once you understand that, it just becomes a whole lot easier. So let's go back here. Oops, my mouse pointer was there. Oops. All right. Now let's look at NOPs, right? NOPs are something very, very interesting and something that not a lot of people take seriously. But essentially what they are, okay, for those of you who have done programming or you've done computer science, I'm sure you've taken a class on machine programming or machine languages. All right. Now, a NOP is usually or most commonly known as a no operation. All right. Now this, what this allows you to do is what this means is a NOP causes the system's processor or the CPU to do nothing for an entire clock cycle. All right. Now this is very important to understand, right? You might be asking, well, what the hell is this, or is this going to help us? Well, NOPs are very, very good for allowing you to get a system to perform or to run a specific file or code for that matter after you've exploited the buffer overflow. Now, this may sound like gibberish if you've never done anything to do with, very low level language or machine language programming. But you really don't have to worry about this. They are used to exploit the buffer overflow. Okay. And essentially, you really just need to know is that they're used to allow you, or they allow you to run or to execute code or remote execute code on the target machine. All right. So again, we can just browse into NOPs. And we can list, and again sorted quite similarly to what you would have on your encoders. You have your architectures. You have your different languages in which you can pass it. You have your architectures are there. All right, so they are subdivided into multiple architectures and stuff like that. All right, now going back. All right, let me just go back. So you just know that this is used to exploit the buffer overflow. There's nothing really interesting there, but we'll be using it also because they do come in very handy when you're talking about much more complex and very, very, very tightly secured systems. Now, again, we've looked at these module categories, and again, they all provide you with a different way of getting into a system, and also, you know, they give you a lot of functionality, and understanding how these are subdivided. For example, the auxiliaries, the encoders, the exploits, the NOPs, the payloads, and the post are very, very important for you to understand. And I hope you guys have understood what they all do. Now, talking about posts, which is the last one here. Posts are simply, what it means is post exploitation. I'm sure most of you knew that. And these are, you know, they're going to be used after the system has been exploited. So you get it, you know. They allow you to perform extra pieces of functionality, or they give you extra pieces of functionality once you've exploited the system. All right. So in hackers or in penetration testing terms, it allows you they allow you to perform, you know, further attacks on the system after the system has been owned. All right. So these can include, as we have done previously, you know, things like keyloggers, spying on the webcam or the microphone, etc., etc. And again, it's subdivided into the operating systems of choice. We can check out, for example, Windows, which is probably the most vulnerable operating system ever created on this planet, but that's for another day, right? All right. Sorry about that. So as you can see, you have your different categories, and then I've told you, I already knew this was going to be there. You have your captures, you have your privilege escalation, you have your gathering, you have your managed gathering being where you would find your keyloggers. So if I just open that up and I list the files in there, you're going to see that there's a lot of stuff in here, right? And whoa, one of my favorite ones, I actually remember doing this back when I was in school, was using the one of these exploits right here, or these modules, if I may say so, was to enumerate the product keys, and you know, you can actually just delete the Windows activation protocol on the Windows computer, and they would basically be stuck with Windows without any sense of activation, and the operating system would be really, really burnt to the ground. Some of the interesting ones here, as you can see, a Bitcoin jacker. That's pretty interesting, but I'm just going to skip over that because that's for another day, right? All right. So looking back at the categories that you have in here, in the modules, you have your auxiliary, encoders, exploits, NOPs, payloads, and posts. And I hope in this video you've understood what they all have in you know, in terms of Metasploit. And I'm sure once you've understood these, using Metasploit will be a complete breeze. You know, there'll be no struggle at all understanding how everything works. So yeah, guys, that's going to be it for this video. I hope you found value in this video. If you did, please leave a like down below, and hopefully you can share it with someone who also needs these types of videos. And yeah, thank you so much for the support. If you have any questions or suggestions, let me know in the comment section down below, or you can hit me up on my social networks. You can contact me on Kick, or if you have any further questions, you can ask them on my website. There's a forum section as well, so you can also ask me there, and you can, you know, communicate with other subscribers on the channel. So there's lots of ways to communicate with me and with other subscribers of the channel. So again, for the latest hacking news and resources, please check out my website. The link will be in the description, HackerSploit.com. And yeah, thank you so much for watching, and I'll be seeing you in the next video. Peace.